Welcome back to another episode of the Erectile Dysfunction Radio podcast. Today we are joined once again by Skip. Skip is a patient advocate for men's health after suffering for nearly 30 years with erectile dysfunction. Armed with knowledge built over 3 decades, Skip desires to bring from behind the veil authentic truth and dialogue that advances solutions and decision-making for men suffering from ED. Married for 26 years, Skip has been prescribed every pill, pump, patch, device, and injection offered over the last 30 years. He successfully underwent implant surgery in 2020. Skip heralds his treatment as transformational to his personal confidence, as well as life-changing and definitional moment in his marriage. Skip holds a PhD in human capital management, and he is a veteran of the United States Air Force. Skip, thanks for joining us once again.
Hey, Mark. Thanks for having me. It's always great to chat with you and share with others lessons learned about my own personal ED journey in hopes of helping other men find viable solutions. And I'm really grateful for the work that you're doing with the Center for Intimacy, Connection, and Change, and leading the way to provide a platform for information sharing.
And we're glad that we can do that. And we're really, really thankful that you're coming on and telling us your story, sharing your wisdom with us. So today we want to explore some of the mental mind games of erectile dysfunction when a man is in a relationship. Mind games come in several forms, including performance anxiety, avoidance, bargaining, and projecting. We want to get into a better understanding of some of those today. So to get us started, Skip, can you share with our listeners about your personal process with erectile dysfunction?
Sure. So again, Mark, thanks. So I'm a 50-year-old male that has suffered with ED from my early 20s. So a 3-decade-long journey of not being able to have the confidence that I could achieve and maintain an erection that was capable of having a healthy, productive sexual relationship with my spouse. And over those 3 decades, it has tested my resolve personally as a male. It is absolutely impacted my relationship with my spouse along the way and created a lot of stress and anxiety that really is the reason why I'm here to share with others the solutions that are available out there to hopefully break down some of the silos of information that are out there to give men an opportunity to seek permanent solutions to erectile dysfunction.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate your openness and sharing with us. So to that end, because this episode is taking a more of a relational focus,
Yep.
What would help our listeners to understand is a little bit how did erectile dysfunction become apparent in your relationship? Were you aware of some of these challenges before getting into the relationship, or did it specifically begin to manifest with partnered sexual activity?
So great question. And 100%, there was no indication prior to getting married that I had any of these issues. But it absolutely manifested itself from day one in my marriage. And it clearly is it flies in the face of what you would expect a young 20-something to be experiencing. And we really didn't know if it was, anxiety. We didn't know if there was perhaps a physiological or physical function failure. And it took us a long time to try to work through, personally in our relationship, that there was perhaps something else going on that required me to finally, seek medical intervention.
Yeah. So at the age of your early 20s, entering into this relationship, it was basically apparent almost from the beginning. It sounds
100%.
right from the beginning. Now, was there any discrepancies between what was happening in the relationship or what you would see on your own, whether that was with morning erections, nocturnal erections or like something that might occur not in the presence of your partner?
Yeah. So no, there was no indication leading up to, but it was very apparent, as I was in a committed relationship and married that there was an issue. And the psychological impact that starts to have on you is enormous. And I don't think that a lot of guys know how to really deconflict that, individually or otherwise. And it kind of led Mark, my wife and I, on a path of blaming one another. And there was a lot of, well, am I not sexy enough, or am I not doing something right? And those are stressful issues to take into the bedroom, and it started to just become a stressful event, no matter what setting you were in, whether it was celebrating a milestone, anniversary, birthday, or otherwise, or a vacation. It didn't matter the setting; it was still ending with the same result, and that was the ability to perform. Inability to perform. And it really just spilled over into becoming an area of our relationship that I avoided to the nth degree. I would get stressed
Okay, so
days.
Chip, I'm gonna slow you down because so much of your experience are things that I encounter in the clinical setting, and I want our listeners to really kind of be able to kind of understand these components that certainly sound like they were present for you. But these questions that I formulated to be able to ask you are things that I did not run by you. I did not learn about your experience prior to the recording. So I want to kind of slow things down just a little bit so
Yep.
our listeners can get a better feel for what some of these, mental hula hoops are that men jump through. So
Sure.
if it's okay with you, I want to ask some particular questions to help kind of highlight some of these mental games. So some men try to hide or downplay their struggle with erection, certainly when it's initially presenting in a relationship. Did you go through this at all?
I did, and I would use work, stress. I was traveling a lot. I was working shift work. I was a firefighter for a lot of years, so I could hide a lot of times behind the veil of work as an excuse. And it was one of many methodologies that I would use to try to overshadow that there was a bigger issue going on. And that worked for a time, but long term, obviously, that was not,
It wasn't going to work. Yeah.
wasn't going to work.
And Skip, did those mental exercises, did they work for you in addition to the relationship? In other
Yeah.
words, were you able to almost to a certain extent buy into it yourself that no, I'm just busy, I'm not in the mood, I'm tired, I got stressed from work, and almost avoid that internal pain and that
100%.
internal struggle?
Yep, 100%. And I think I did that for a whole lot of years. And looking back now, I wish that I would have been a little bit more of an advocate personally to find alternatives. 100% is the answer to your question. I 100% bought into all of the excuses that I was presenting, while at the same time trying to protect my partner, who was also trying to self-assign on herself. Is it her? And those are just mental mind games that really have the propensity to impact the dynamics and a healthy relationship.
Yeah, and we'll come to that in a moment. But it's also not lost on me, if I'm doing my calculations correctly, 30 years back is around 1992,
Correct.
which is well before access to like a
Pills,
little blue
pumps,
pill, the
right.
medication. So
Bingo.
I mean, to me, it makes sense that like what's the alternative? There is no easy solution to all of this. Either it's really like initially a very steep climb,
Yep.
and having to bring up a topic where you can't at the time just get a prescription for something. It's not as simple as that. So either you have to face that, right? Which could feel like daunting and even hopeless.
Correct.
Or, right, convince yourself that there's other reasons why this is happening, and once they clear, it'll all be okay.
Correct. And at the time I was in the military, and there just wasn't resources for somebody to go and talk to, or treatments to seek. It was just kind of, it wasn't an area that you had a lot of options or opportunities to explore solutions. And at the time it was just, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Um, we could probably one out of every four tries succeed in achieving an erection that was capable of, Shangri-La.
Yeah.
And that was stressful.
So, Skip, how open was communication in the relationship around sexuality?
Uh, Early on, it was really tough because clearly it was a new relationship. We were both really young. We did not know what we did not know. You just are ingrained to think, well, an intimate moment is going to naturally occur, and when it doesn't, you don't know what or how to really deconflict that in your own mental well-being, right? So we talked about it to the extent that, okay, what else can we try? Whether it was additional foreplay or otherwise, none of those seemed to elicit any better outcomes than others. So it again then goes through a cycle where we are trying to express empathy, and then we move to blaming, and it really is a cycle that goes round and round.
Yeah, and as a young couple, look, it's oftentimes hard enough to figure out how to get things to a place that works for both partners
Sure,
when all the physiological parts are working.
sure.
It's a whole nother thing when there is like a sexual function challenge on top of all of that. And yes, the efforts to be empathic, no doubt, are helpful, but it also runs thin after a while
It,
and
it,
kind of
it really
leads to that cycle of blame and criticism and defense, and all those unhelpful pieces. And I was going to ask, like, did you blame your partner at some point for your ED, which is very common. It's very common to do that, and it sounds like at points that had happened.
No, I didn't do that often. I would deflect a lot and say, look, I'm just not in the mood. I again was, really busy at the firehouse this week. I've got a lot on my plate. I was going through grad school, things that I could use to just say, look, it's not going to happen tonight. Let's stop talking about it. Um, uh, we were trying to start a family, and clearly there's a recipe to making a family, and when you don't have all the ingredients, it's hard to go along that journey. And that's kind of where our medical exploration, to treating ED started. It was, how do we find solutions that give us the opportunity to increase our intimate life so we can start a family?
Yeah. And it sounds like, again, you're saying that more often than not it was deflection, avoidance, again, not with the emotional intention of rejection, but let's kind of letting her down gently as opposed to blame. Now, many partners often internalize that experience and they think they're being blamed, even if that isn't the intention. Did that occur?
Uh, it occurred to the extent that I think that my spouse started to think that it was her fault, and that was tough. That was tough to try to deconflict in an intimate moment. and or outside of any intimate conversation, trying to give her the assurance that this is nothing she's doing wrong. It's clearly with me. And she was much more of an advocate for me to go and talk to my doctor, and I just wasn't ready to unpack that at the time. A 20-year-old talking to a military doctor that you're not able to achieve an erection is just not normal. And it was a tough journey to have to start the dialogue. And it wasn't until after the dialogue was started that it became a little bit more easier to talk to the physicians about treatments.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned efforts to be empathic. And I know that, again, it's such a stressful experience for many men and many couples that, sometimes the empathy can wax and wane. When the empathy was present, did you believe her efforts to be reassuring and that it really was okay and that she was understanding? Or did you struggle to really kind of take that in and believe it?
I think we both really struggled on trying to understand the why. And certainly I'm not speaking for my spouse, but I feel like my spouse, for 25 years of chasing this journey, truly blamed herself, and at the same time didn't understand why this was happening, and thought that I was just kind of checked out sexually. I wasn't interested in exploring treatments that would give us that natural intimate life. Personally, I 100% blamed myself because I knew that it was something that I wanted to do, but it just wasn't naturally occurring. And it again was just a stress.
Now, speaking of stress, we often talk about two types of anxieties that are unique to the sexual experience: a performance anxiety and an anticipatory anxiety. And for our listeners who are just tuning into this episode, performance anxiety is more of that angst, worried, uncomfortable feeling that you might be experiencing in the moment, while anticipatory anxiety is more of the anxiety that exists leading up to an experience, thinking about it. You're going on date night or whatnot, and you've got those thoughts already starting to run through your mind. You got those feelings starting to run through you. Did you experience either or both of these at points?
Yeah. Great question. Love that question, actually. And the bottom line up front, both. The anticipatory anxiety started usually several days knowing that an event was coming up or date night was coming up. And I would start to mentally prepare for what I already thought was going to be an activity that wouldn't be successful, and try to look for excuses to either prolong or avoid an intimate setting. And from the performance anxiety perspective, Mark, you found yourself that when you even got remotely close to having an erection that was capable of penetration, it was, holy crap, like, I think it's going to work. And then you try to hurry the activity, right? Mm-hmm. And so then it goes from being a natural experience to a really rushed experience in hopes that both partners are going to be able to enjoy the moment, right? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I mean, you don't want to lose it. At Correct. That point, there's a pressure to get things moving as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
And that's the performance anxiety when things are going well, relatively speaking.
Right.
Forget when you're not getting the erection or it's not getting as firm as you want. That's also like a whole nother form of performance anxiety.
Right. And in that zeal to try to rush the moment, because you know that, or you feel physically that I think that this is a viable enough erection for penetration. Then when you start to rush the moment and then you lose the erection, it just opens up another Pandora's box of, well, what happened because we were there.
Mhm.
Like, and again, it comes back to the blaming. Am I doing something wrong, or is my spouse doing something wrong, or is she not feeling or exuding something that I don't feel that she's sexy enough or otherwise, and it just starts all the same questions over and over again.
Yeah, just opens up a whole new
It
path
does.
or a whole new door of anxiety.
Yeah.
Um,
I love that question though. The anticipatory versus the performance anxiety. Those are two very different areas, and along my way, I can 100% say that both of those occurred routinely.
yeah. Now, many of these mental games, mind games, but they're not really mind games, they're really constructs that I think men find themselves in. And understandably, this is like a really difficult experience to be in, let alone to be in various stages of this over 30 years and the toll it takes on the relationship. It is a really difficult headspace to be in. Now, I know how hard the men that I work with and the men that are trying to really resolve some of this have to work to really get there. It's not an easy hill to climb. It's really, really tough because, like you're highlighting, it gets compounded pretty quickly.
It
It
really
can
does.
really get entrenched pretty quickly, and it's hard to step out of that thinking. Now, did you find, Skip, that anything helped you to step out of some of these anxiety loops and some of this headspace to lead to better outcomes, or did it feel like it got to a point very quickly where it was just too ingrained to really step out of?
Yeah, great question. So looking back, I can 100% say that I wasn't able to step out of that cycle, and I just kind of affirmed that this is what it is, and having an intimate life is not going to be something that this relationship is going to enjoy. And it wasn't until probably the last 10 years that I started really becoming a more staunch medical advocate for myself, that we started to find opportunities to open up more, which led to a lot more dialogue interpersonally within my relationship, as much as medically with my practitioners, to be able to seek treatment options that were a little bit more sustaining. And it's not until you start finding those treatment options and gaining confidence that I found that headspace kind of evolving, right? Confidence, sexual confidence is an elixir, right? And that's kind of why now that I've kind of gone full circle with this regimen, it really is giving me a feeling of more virility, that I know that when we want to have an intimate moment, it's going to occur. It's no longer a question of let's hope, let's anticipate that it might. It will.
Yeah, and that helps to really just cut a lot of those anxiety loops, if not all of them, really just cuts them right off.
Yeah.
And
It really does. And I'm outside of that anxiety loop now. I'm almost coming up on 3 years at the end of this year from my implant, and that anxiety is 100% gone. I share with guys, I am ready before my partner is, and I am able to continue long after my partner says that's enough. And mentally, that gives you confidence,
Mhm.
and it's that confidence that has 100% bolstered and improved my intimate relationship with my spouse.
Yeah, and I think you're highlighting such an important part because we talk a lot about breaking these anxiety loops for men who are experiencing lack of confidence in the bedroom or are experiencing a psychogenic erectile dysfunction. And it's got really like a big performance focus in terms of helping to facilitate better erections. But there's a whole nother side to breaking that anxiety loop, which is the overall experience is totally different if you are not in that performative mindset. If you're able to really kind of be in that pleasure focused mindset to enjoy the moment, to connect with a partner. And it sounds like, Skip, your journey ultimately landed you in that space with a renewed sense of confidence that has changed the whole feel of that sexual experience. That's a really powerful thing.
It truly is, Mark. And 100%, you hit the nail on the head. You no longer have to worry about coming up with excuses. You don't have to worry about, oh no, I forgot to take that little blue pill as I'm leaving the restaurant, knowing that, I'm an hour away from getting back to the home or on a vacation. You no longer have to worry about if you are, able to enjoy an intimate moment, what the impact of those side effects could be. For me, it was really bad flushing, headaches, just powerful headaches as a result of the medications. Those anxieties have been removed, and again, that goes back to feeling more natural and virile. And that's something that as a 50-year-old guy, I missed in my 20s, 30s, and 40s.
Yeah. Skip, I cannot thank you enough for just being so open about these experiences, because I know that there are like hundreds of thousands, if not millions of men who have or are going through or are going to go through these experiences of that angst, that loneliness, just being caught in these loops and feeling like there's just no way out. And there are ways out of this.
Yeah.
Whatever the solution is for each man, figuring out how to get toward that just much more wholesome experience, the being able to connect in with a partner and to not be preoccupied with all of this stuff is really transformative. And I think you sharing about your process and your experience and being able to compare how things were to how things are right now is just such a powerful message. So I thank you so much for coming on and sharing that message with our listeners.
You bet. Again, Mark, I want to thank you for all the work that you're doing to advance dialogue and provide platform for men in this situation with the work that you're doing at CICC. So please feel free to share my contact information with your listeners. I'm always happy to talk to men that are going through similar experiences that I've shared with you today, and help provide them a safe platform for which to ask questions. There's no question that I won't answer. This is a safe space to be able to dialogue with a guy that has gone through what a lot of guys are going through, and be able to give them a one-on-one perspective that hopefully helps them along their own journey. So thanks again.
And Skip, we will absolutely leave your contact information in the description for this episode. So anybody who wants to reach out to you will be able to do that. But thank you again for your time.
Thanks again, Mark.